What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Blue River Bow Hunting Podcast, episode 110. Dylan, what's going on, dude?
Man, I think we're 4 days out. By the time this airs, we'll hopefully put a couple birds down.
Yeah, it did. It can't come fast enough. I'm like chomping. I'm like pacing the floors with like all my gear out, ready to hit the road. I leave Friday morning early for Tennessee to come down there. Me and Adam are driving together. Got an Airbnb down there. Rented somebody's camper out. I mean, I cannot be. I mean, it's here. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
from
it's
here on to the
close.
rest of the month and going into May, I'm going to be in the turkey woods, and I'm absolutely pumped, dude.
Well, it's painful. I mean, I was playing with my dog yesterday and the kids outside, and there's three gobbling in the backfield, and it's like you can't do nothing but watch them. And it's like, man, if 2 years ago, you guys would have been toast. But yeah, I mean, we've already found nests here with eggs in them. So it's kind of crazy,
That
kind
is
of
crazy.
yeah, how fast it's happened. And I think from when you were down here last year to same dates, but how much greener it already is in the woods versus last year when there was no foliage yet. So I'm interested to see how it pans out.
Yeah, for sure. Well, our guest this week, Joey Bell. What's going on, man?
Man, not a whole lot. I'm chomping at the bit just like y'all are.
yeah, yeah, but you've already got the hunt a little bit, right?
Yeah, I've dipped my toes in it. I went for a week in Hawaii and I went for a handful of days in Alabama last week. So I've at least got my feet wet. And then I actually got my feet wet this past weekend during youth season after all this rain and all the mess that we've had. So
Yeah.
I've I've gotten to hunt, but I am still ready to do it again.
Yeah, we got a little bit of a mess here too, where I'm at in Indiana. Actually, my man cave studio down here has been flooded all weekend, and that was me putting
Mm-hmm.
in hours worth of time. We got about, I think it's something like 14 or 15 inches of rain in like 3 or 4 days or whatever it was. It's
Wow.
been an absolute nightmare. I mean, Blue River, I hunt Blue River a lot here, and it looks like the Mississippi River. I mean, it's overtaken farms. I mean, roads. There's parts of major interstates shut down here. It's an absolute mess up here in Indiana.
Yeah, it's gotten real bad. Not like 2010. I don't know if y'all remember the 2010 or the 2010 flood
Oh yeah.
around Nashville. Flooded Opry Mills and Bass Pro and all of it. It didn't get that bad, but we got flooded in. Here in my house, we got blocked in, and we were only blocked in for like a day, but it still got high enough to block us in.
Well, buddy, for somebody that doesn't know you, introduce yourself a little bit.
So yeah, my name is Joey Bell. I was born and raised in Tennessee, and lived in Virginia and Baltimore for a couple of years after college, and then moved back down here. Started turkey hunting probably when I was about 15, and my dad never turkey hunted. He was an old farmer. He's kind of older. He'll be 82 this year, and so he can remember when we had zero turkeys and zero deer, around home. And so we didn't get any turkeys until the late 80s or so and into the 90s. And so the turkey hunting culture in Tennessee just wasn't like it is down in, Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama, those, I call them blue chip states for turkey hunting. We just didn't have that. And so there weren't a whole lot of older guys that turkey hunted that could kind of show me the ropes. But I had an ag teacher in high school, and he'd bring his turkey calls in to school, and he'd be messing with his pot calls during class, and he would have his box calls and mouth calls, and he would just be tinkering with this stuff. And I don't know, it just piqued my interest. I had deer hunted for I don't know, probably nearly a decade, up till then, and killed several deer, but I just never turkey hunted. So it was just something new to me, and the interaction and what he described turkey hunting as to me, it just really piqued my interest. And so he's the one that took me out. He took me out like one time on my farm, on the farm that we had, that we grew up on. Didn't kill anything, but I got to hear turkey gobbles and got to hear him, interact. And so that kind of got the ball rolling. Um, and then my dad, like I said, he never turkey hunted, so he tried his best, to try to get me, keep me going into turkey hunting. And the best way that he knew was to just like build brush blinds in the edge of the field and basically deer hunt these turkeys. And so I did that for a handful of years, and then I finally started watching, Primos videos and a handful of other stuff that I can get my hands on from the video rental places. And I just kind of I started learning how to, I guess, properly turkey hunt, and doing the little more run and gun. I bought me a leafy suit, saved up some money for a Pretty Boy decoy, if y'all remember those back in the day.
I used one of those.
Yeah, had that giant laundry sack that you carried it around in.
Yeah.
And so that just kind of, really kicked things off. And ever since then, I've changed a little bit every year. I'm learning more and more all the time, but it is the tribe that I've chosen. It seems like back then when I was in high school, we had a lot of deer hunters. There were still a lot of deer hunters. And it was just, turkey hunting was just something different. It just kind of set me apart. And so that's what I really liked about it. It was just different and there was more action. So I just was drawn to it.
I feel like we're all kind of similar boat when you were explaining that. My dad didn't turkey hunt. We were big deer hunters. So, and I kind of had an ag teacher. I had a great uncle that lived down in Kentucky, and that's where I kind of cut my teeth turkey hunting. And he would get his calls out and explain stuff to me a little bit. But I learned most of it really from watching Night and Hail. Primos, any of those DVDs or VHSs at the time that I could get my hands on to learn. And I feel like that era of people that had that compared to maybe just a kid learning on YouTube or listening to podcasts. I mean, that wasn't even a thing back then. There was a little Saturday morning outdoor show on my local radio that I could listen to, but in central Indiana here, we didn't really have any turkey, so they never really got into that. But I kind of feel like we're all in the same ballpark. Dylan, didn't you even have a teacher that you actually hunted with in high school?
Yeah, so same thing, man. They had me deer hunting from the time I could bear the cold, really. And then I guess middle school, I was like, man, I want a turkey hunt. It's something to do because I was just eat up with it. And it's like, well, I want to deer hunt or work food plots. And then it was, well, we can chase turkey. Let's go chase turkey. And I had an ag teacher that, man, went above and beyond as far as trying to teach me, taking me, and he took me to a couple spots I had, and then we just hunted together. He taught me a lot. I still text him now, and we actually have a plan to hunt this year for the first time in a few years. But yeah, we would go hunt, and then if we killed a bird or something, first period we just clean it up there, and it was just a class project. But my dad didn't hunt turkeys, big deer hunter, so it was kind of that learning curve, like you said. In Tennessee, we didn't really grow up, or our parents didn't grow up with a ton of turkey, so it was kind of everybody learning. And so, man, I just like Brett said, you don't have all of these different YouTube videos of people not killing, right? You don't have all these different videos at your fingertips. So, if you went to a Blockbuster and you got your hands on a Primos, you were watching the same hunt the exact same way, and you didn't see all the edits or all the cuts or how the bird looped them, and so we were like, man, we're doing something wrong because it looks pretty easy on TV. And, but I've been fortunate to always have a good interaction. It didn't start out killing a lot, but we always heard them. And man, you talk about just back tingling, just ready to get out there. And I think that makes a difference in, we've cut, and our patience is really there instead of somebody just getting that instant, oh, well, these hunts, 7 minutes a pop, we've got this, let's just go. And then, man, it'll kick you in the stomach.
Yeah, you'll get humbled for sure. I mean, you can't believe everything you see on social media, that's for sure. And you can't believe everything you see on YouTube. I mean, if 9 times out of 10 you're going to get beat. I don't know any other way around it. Turkeys aren't hard to hunt because they're smart. They're hard to hunt because they're scared. Yeah. And from the time they get popped out of a hen as an egg until they take their last breath via a hunter or predator or whatever, something's trying to eat them every single day of their life. And so you get a little wary when you're like that.
So how did the March to Spring podcast for Southern Collective, how did all that come together?
So the little background on the Southern Collective. So I don't know if any of you guys have heard of a Parker McDonald with Southern Ground Hunting. He started that several years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and the other guy, Walter Lee, he started Chasing Tails around somewhat at the same time. Parker was based in Alabama, or is based in Alabama, and Walt's down in Florida. And for years, they had their own individual podcasts, and they became good friends over the years. And eventually, they decided, hey, we bounce ideas off of each other all the time. Uh, let's just combine our strengths, and we'll just make this thing a whole. And so they created the Southern Collective a couple of years ago, and they I'm very humbled that they asked me to come along and just help out with turkey stuff. There's another couple guys, Matt Reeves and Brett Mashburn. They do the deer content primarily. They're excellent deer hunters, and they just asked me to come along for turkey stuff, which I'm happy to do. And so we were looking for something before this past spring to kind of set us apart and do something a little different, and also to kind of concentrate turkey content, and then they can get back to deer stuff after that. It seems like there's a lot of deer guys, they get a little burnout on turkey stuff after probably about 6 weeks because they just ain't wired like we are. And so it was decided that, hey, if we can cram all this stuff into March, the very the very epitome of turkey season, by the end of March, then people aren't going to get burnt out on it. And by the time that they potentially may get burnt out on it, we can switch right back to deer stuff. And so that's what they did. They're like, well, something that'll set us apart is doing 31 straight days of turkey podcast. And that's exactly what we did. Miraculously, we pulled it off. We did 31 straight days of turkey podcast, and credit to Parker and Walt too. I mean, they're not just like 5-minute episode, 10-minute episodes. I mean, these are 45 minutes to sometimes an hour and a half episodes. And with the three of us with our schedules, and then you also factor in guest schedules with a handful of guests that we had. It was pretty difficult, and it took us. I think we started recording stuff in February, beginning of February or so, and we finally got stuff done by the end of March. So that was pretty awesome. It was Walt's idea, so I'll credit him with the idea. And Parker, he has a tremendous creative mind, and so he just helped. They both just pushed that thing through, and it was amazing.
Yeah, we know what it's like to line guests up and deal with schedules and all that stuff. How hard was it to put 31 straight? I mean, we did a 1 week where we did 3, and it was like, okay, I'm not doing this anymore. So like, I can imagine there was probably weeks where, did you do more than 3 in a week?
Oh man, we did. So I work from home when I'm not traveling for work, and so I'm a little bit flexible. So, and Parker, he works for himself. And so there were some days where he and I could crank out like 3 episodes in a day.
Nice.
And so by the time March rolled around, I think we had a little over 2 weeks worth of episodes in the bank. And then, turkey season opened in March. I think those guys started hunting the north zone of Florida in mid-March. So we were basically off, for a week where nobody could line up, or actually 2 weeks, because I was in Hawaii for a week, and then those guys were hunting Florida. So we really had to hustle, that third week of March or so, and get everything wrapped up. But yeah, I guess it's, you guys know, having, 3 or 4 different schedules to try to line up, man, you're walking a fine line there. It's hard to do.
Yeah, especially the closer you get to turkey season. We ran into that. It's like, well, I won on, but I'm in Florida, and then I'm bouncing back, and then the NWTF we done it in the midst of that. And yeah, we had that run of 3, and it was like, okay, yep, well, we just have to do 3 this week. We'll take next week off, and then hit it again. But it's like, you got to get it when the getting's good, because man, these guys they're like us, and as soon as they can chase a bird, they're in the woods somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and more people are traveling, these last several years, so it makes it even tougher. especially when you get on the road. You're trying to roost birds at 9 o'clock at night, and you haven't eaten supper yet. Then you got to talk for an hour, on the phone. When you get done with all that, it's tough. I know how it is.
Yeah, talk about some of the guests that you had on, and some of the stuff that you guys talked about. Maybe get some listeners to go check some of those episodes out.
Just off the top of my head, we had Shane Simpson. We've had Catman. We got Greg Mayer from Meadow Creek Mounts. John Beard from Beard's Only Taxidermy. Who all else? We had Jason Cruz from Mossberg. Man, I don't even know. I'd have to get that list out. But
31 guests, that's hard to keep up with.
Yeah, for the vast majority of them, for probably at least half of them, it was just us. But we were able to sprinkle guests, in throughout, so they didn't get tired of us just rambling on about a little bit of everything. And another thing too, you're trying to come up with 31 different topics to talk about.
Yeah.
Obviously some stuff's going to get repeated a little bit, but man, it takes something special to get it that many turkey topics out the door.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we've talked about when we've had particular guests on. Like, we wanted to maybe focus on certain things of that guest to maybe keep the conversation flowing, and we're not hammering the same stuff every week. Yeah. Like when we had Dave Owens on, it was like, of course you want to ask him every question that you can possibly ask him about turkey hunting. But we didn't. We got to know Dave. We wanted to know the personal stuff, and talk about him on his adventures that he goes on, for 90 days of spring. It's like we just wanted to circle different things and still have such a great rapport and conversation with our guests. That way, it made people want to keep listening to our turkey episodes.
Well, luckily, everybody's so different. We're all the same but different kind of thing. Everybody's got their quirks. Everybody's got different ways of viewing things or different ways of doing things. So you probably could ask the same questions to just about everybody, every turkey hunter that you come across, and you could get a different answer every time.
Right.
Yeah, I told Brett, I was like, going into some of these, man, I'm going to be selfish with my questions, because there's a lot of things I want to know for me. And
yeah, that's true.
You get a lot of feedback from that. It's like I've been wondering the same thing. And it's like, if I can come and sit with some of the greatest turkey hunters and sit down and just conversate, pick their mind, at least I'm leaving with a good, set of new tools to try. And I feel like, I'm 32. I've been turkey hunting since middle school. I've become kind of complacent in the way I was chasing birds because it was working for me. So, like, it's just been so rejuvenating to talk to all these different people and get their, perspective on things. And that's Brett and I was talking about this weekend with Tennessee Open. It's like, I'm so excited to just, all right, this is what I would have done. Let's use what Scott Ellis would do. Let's take, we're Shane Simpson. We talked to him. Let's throw some of that on there. And I forget which guest it was, but Brett felt singled out with his calling.
That was Shane, because he was like, don't purr and then go into a yelp. You're either a feeding hen or a relaxed hen, or you're an active yelping hen. I was like, damn, I think you watched one of my videos, because I've done
that before. Hey, man, when you talk to people like Shane Simpson and Dave Owens, there's a reason I keep a pencil and paper right here handy.
Oh, for sure.
When you got the guys like that on, you best be taking notes.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about it. Tennessee, it opens this weekend. We're all three jacked. We're ready to get in the woods. Let's circle Tennessee and let's talk about some things. Tennessee heritage. I want to hear your views on Tennessee. You grew up there. You hunt there. Let's hear your heritage and traditions and all that stuff when it comes to Tennessee turkey hunting.
Like I said before, we're not one of those blue chip states. Our turkey, I think the majority of our turkey culture has come up in the last 30 years. And that's probably just as long as we've had turkeys. Like I said, we got the turkeys in the late 80s. We probably peaked in that early 2000s when a lot of us started turkey hunting. We didn't know it then, but that was the golden age of turkey hunting in Tennessee. I remember vividly, sitting in a deer stand and counting a winter flock of, I stopped counting at 75, hens or
Wow.
whatever, and I have no idea how many more, probably that many more, come out of the woods into that pasture that day. But that used to be a very common occurrence. Now, we still have a lot of turkeys. And I think that's one reason that our turkey hunting culture has kind of remained pretty strong. I think we have seen a decline in turkeys, but we still got a lot of them. Same with Kentucky. I always tell people that Kentucky's got more turkeys than Tennessee anyway. Just hopefully they'll just migrate north and stay out of Tennessee. But no, we've just always had turkeys, and so I guess we got kind of spoiled by having so many turkeys, 20 years ago, and that, when they started to decline, I think some people thought the sky was falling. They had this golden goose and it was about to get gone. But I think the fact of the matter is that we've just had so many turkeys. There's been so many different factors that have probably led to that decline. But I think turkeys are so cyclical that I think we're going to be okay. Now, granted, yeah, we could probably do without all this development. I can't stand to see all this development that we got in Middle Tennessee. And of course, we could always, work on predators a little bit better. We could work on habitat a little bit better. But I think the weather has been the main factor for us. We were just talking about the flooding that happened around here over the weekend. I'm kind of glad it happened now instead of late May or late April, early May, like it used to for probably about a decade. I think it wiped out a lot of nests. Whenever the river got up, any turkey nest that was in the river bottom got swept away. And so and then data has shown that when a hen is trying to re-nest, it's never as successful. So I think it has a lot to do with it. And we just still got a lot of turkeys. And I don't think the sky is falling as bad as some people want to think it is, especially around here.
Well, we had Dr. Chamberlain on several weeks ago, and I think I heard you say it on one of your episodes. Like there was a certain point where he was talking somewhere or something at a conference somewhere, or maybe in WTF or something, and he talked about those declines, and then after that, it was just like, the ceiling's falling in on all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something you think happened, or was it an actual very degress and decline on the turkey population itself?
Yeah, I think two things can be true at once. I think there was a decline going on, but I just don't think nobody was talking about it until he started talking about it. And I think I referenced one time, I remember when he was first on the Meat Eater podcast several years ago. That was the very first time that I heard about any kind of turkey decline. Because again, I'm from Tennessee. We've always had turkeys. And so I don't really know what it's like to live in an area with a poor turkey population, even throughout all this decline that everybody's been talking about for the last decade or so. We've still had a lot of turkeys. We've had several years where the hatch wasn't good, but I think we just had such a spike in population that it probably just kind of flattened out or plateaued out. So yeah, I think we were probably losing turkeys, but I think it was gonna happen eventually, regardless. I think that population spike has a lot to do with it too, and he just brought it to light. He was able to get on like Meat Eater, and I think he first started talking about it there, and then he was able to use his platform and share more data that they found and all these other theories. And so the great thing about all that is it's gotten more people talking about turkeys than ever has probably in the last 60 years. That can be good and bad. Mm-hmm. Good that everybody's talking about saving turkeys, bad that everybody's talking about going out and hunting turkeys. If you've ever been on public land, you probably know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So yeah, he kind of kickstarted everything, I guess, when he did that.
Yeah, I've kind of talking with people. I'm fortunate enough to, a lot of people ask me, I get to, mingle with a ton of people. And kind
Mhm.
of what I've picked up is people do see it as a renewable resource, but they think it's a given renewable resource.
Mhm.
They don't take in factors of vehicles, predators,
Mhm.
weather, habitat loss. They just think, hey, if I shoot a tom this year, there's going to be one there tomorrow, next year. And I'm a huge advocate of next year. If you're worried
Mhm.
about next year, this year is going to be fine, but you've got to focus on next year.
Mhm.
And I have, tried my hardest to find new farms, new leases. That way I can rotate it and I'm not over pressuring. Because, a lot of people will talk public versus private. Well, I think it's pressured. You can go to private land that has 10 guys on a, 500 acres,
Mhm.
and those birds be more wary than any public land. It's pressure, not who owns the
Yeah.
land.
Yep.
And, for me, I've, in the past, I guess, 5 years, I've really took a, like, I don't know, I've become obsessed with habitat management,
Mhm.
and to where I'm not bush hogging until certain times of year. I'm even letting some stuff stay up. I'm trying to, that was one of my questions to Michael Chamberlain was, what can I do to make them like excel but not be vulnerable?
Mhm.
Because you get into that, well, it's super thick and then they're easily preyed on. So it's kind of like I've become indulged in just trying to
Mhm.
figure it out, and then to the point where I figured my birds out on my farm. I know exactly what they're doing. I, I'm not even hunting my home farm this year. Like we're bouncing
Mhm.
around because it's a way to study, it's a way to grow and figure them out. And um, I just see all these people going out and they're just waylaying, and I'm like, guys, just slow down a little bit, because next year you're going to
Mhm.
be disappointed, and on that survey you're going to say you're not seeing any toms, and then it's going to be a slippery slope of more because you're not, feeling that instant gratification. So
Mhm.
it's just, man, I can soapbox about the turkey and deer in Tennessee because I see it, and I see it from so many different perspectives. I'm like, well, what are you doing to, continue to for next year? Oh, nothing. I'm not doing anything. It's like, that's
Mhm.
the problem. Like, go shoot some coyote, go, and you're not going to fix it by shooting a coyote, because it's just not how it works. But you're helping, you're
Mhm.
doing something, you're contributing. And I think as
Mhm.
long as you're trying, it's gonna, it's helping it in some form or fashion.
Yeah, I'm in that same boat. I still have the farm that I grew up on. It's a little over 100 acres now. And my dad, I think I mentioned earlier, he's a little older. He'll be 82 this year. And I finally convinced him a couple of years ago to quit bush hogging everything, especially so early. And then a couple of years ago, I finally convinced him to let me start burning that place.
Mm-hmm.
And we've always had a lot of turkeys on it, so I can't honestly tell you how much of a difference it's made, but I can tell you that it has probably set our property apart from everybody else's around there because we are the only ones that burn.
Mm-hmm.
We are surrounded by, there's ag property, there's timber property, there's just regular old grown up cattle pastures. I mean, there's a vast variety of habitats surrounding us, but we're the only ones that have burns on it now. And so I can't help but think that that's, drawn more game, deer and turkey to our place. So that's another thing that Dr. Chamberlain and, Marcus Lashley, Will Goolsby, Brett Collier, all these other guys, that's one of the best things that they've been able to do in the last handful of years. They've made habitat management cool
Mm-hmm.
again. And so you start seeing in January on Instagram and all this other social media, people are burning like you didn't see that 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't see people burning in January. People were still just deer hunting and doing all these other things. They were doing everything but. They may have been predator hunting uh, because a lot of people would coyote hunt after deer season, but that was about it. Like nobody hardly trapped. They made trapping cool again. People want to trap a lot more now, so they've just really put turkey conservation on a pedestal, and for that I have to thank them for it.
What about
Yeah,
go ahead, buddy. Go ahead.
I feel like with the NWTF and how big it's grown, that has just become such a platform to get knowledge out. And I'd seen somebody had shared a post. I don't remember who it was, but somebody was like, turkey burning's bad for turkey. Turkey don't like it. And then it was literally a picture of the fire, and like 12 foot from the fire is a hen picking in the smolder. It's like, no, they like it, you know? So it was
Yeah.
pretty cool to see.
Yeah.
What about, bag limits? Obviously, you guys were once a 4-bird state. Now you're down to 2. What's your thoughts on bag limits in Tennessee?
Man, if you just look at the harvest data, it hadn't changed any. The harvest hadn't really changed except for 2020, obviously. I mean, that's going to be the outlier for pretty much every state. But other than that, I mean, it does have its ebbs and flows, but the average harvest has not changed at all since they changed the bag limit from 4 to 3 and now 2. Now, I don't know how many hunters we've had since then. Since those changes, I don't know if we have more hunters in the same bag limit. Yeah, then you might could say, okay, well, there's something going on there. I don't know if it's we have less turkeys or people just ain't that good at turkey hunting no more. So I don't know what to think about that. But as far as just harvest data, we're killing the same amount of turkeys. If they were hoping to save turkeys by lowering the limit, then I think they failed in that department anyway.
Dylan, what's your thought process on the bags?
I seen the statistics they launched last year of like percentage of people who killed 1, percentage of people who killed 2, and it was the gap between your people killing 2 and your people killing 1 was way different. And if you go back and look, it's the same thing. It'd be X amount gets 1, then it dwindles down to 2, dwindles down to 3, and like in a lot of cases, it's the guys that are struggling to maybe get that second bird that are really filling out that end of year survey. Because I get hit with it all the time. Well, if I was hunting spots like you had, then I'd get it too. And it's like, well, you can. Like you can go knock on doors, or you can go get permit. Like you can. It's just a want to go out and do it. So I don't know really. I mean, I don't remember, but I think it was like under 30% of the hunters got 2 last year. It was something crazy because I remember being like, wow, I killed 2. And like, that put me in this category. But I mean, I'm seeing a ton of birds, and I drove around yesterday after the rain, and every field I drove by had hens and toms in it. I'm seeing a healthy number of jakes every year. I'm keeping a good number of toms. They seem to be healthy. They're not, scraggly or, sick. Look, I don't really know how I feel about it. I mean, I'm okay with it being 2. Would I like to kill a third without having to travel? Of course I would. But for next year, I'm good with just having 2 and having to travel a little bit, That's kind of where I'm at with it.
Yeah, I am glad that they didn't take any days away. There are
Yeah.
some states that shorten the season or whatever, and even when they shifted our season 2 weeks later, I am very happy they didn't take any days away. Like I don't like whatever reasons that you have for moving the season, don't take any days away.
Yeah.
Because if I have a tag at the end of May, I am hunting turkeys. And I don't want that taken away, and I wouldn't want that taken away from anybody. So I'm glad they didn't take anything away from us.
Do you like that they've moved our season so far back? Because I know previous to this, like the switch that they made, it was always, in my opinion, the best time to be was the original juvenile weekend. I felt like they were always fired up. They were always hot. And now, they did it so that more hens were bred. But man, I guess I've got FOMO, just fear of missing out, because I'm seeing them, I'm hearing them, and I'm chomping. I'm like, man, I'm going to miss it this year. And last year it worked out great. But do you think that's made a difference at all?
I think as far as moving the season to create more turkeys, I don't think that's helped. And we have the reports that showed, when they did that study, it didn't affect anything. However, if you compare the hunting for the past couple of opening weekends in the middle of April versus, previously when opening weekend was at late March, early April time frame, I think the quality of hunting is better. Now, I will agree with you that you get more gobbling and all that other stuff. But as far as working birds and finding lonely birds in that mid-morning, middle of the day time frame, I think that has been tremendous for opening weekend. Now you're still, even if it opened 2 weeks early, you would still get that same kind of hunting in that
Yeah.
mid-April. But as far as current opening weekend versus opening weekend a handful of years ago, I think it's a night and day difference.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like it being later, it's like if you don't get him right off the roost, you can kind of be like, okay, well, let that hen go nest, and then he's going
Mm-hmm.
to be fair game. It kind of adds a rut aspect to the turkey.
Mm-hmm.
I heard you say something on your show, on that particular show I keep mentioning several times, but you even mentioned maybe bag limits or creating units inside the state. Um, Talk about that a little bit and what you were kind of thinking when you said that.
So I've heard for the last couple of years that there were plans or there were thoughts from TWRA to move to units within the state. And I could understand that completely because, Dylan, this, East Tennessee versus West Tennessee, there is a dramatic difference in both habitat, turkey numbers, you name it. It's a pretty diverse state, east to west. And so it wouldn't surprise me, and I would be in favor of, 3 or 4 units. Probably three, I think, makes the most sense. Four would be manageable, probably. Um, East Tennessee, Middle Tennessee, West Tennessee, and have a bag limit, a statewide bag limit, and a minimum or a maximum per unit. Oklahoma did something like that for years. They were a 3 bird state, but there were only certain units where you could get 2 birds, or there was certain units that was a 1 bird, and you had to get your other birds in another unit. And so I would be in favor of that, uh, because it just spreads people out a little more. I would probably also be in favor of a 1 bird per WMA regulation. I think they do that in Georgia, or maybe Alabama or wherever. But anyway, it just spreads people out. It just makes people instead of coming to whatever WMA down in Tennessee, handful of guys from out of state, and I know because I've been that guy. Uh, Come to a WMA, kill all your turkeys there, and then you go home. Instead, kill one turkey there, make you go to another place, and so on. So I would be okay with that. Um, it worked for Oklahoma for years. I think Tennessee would be, with the amount of turkeys that we have, I think it would be great for the state.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me of how the deer used to be with the 3 units. Remember, it was just east, middle, and
Yep.
west, and we had
Yep.
the lines. And it has kind of thrown a wrench when you have to go in and you look, and because for deer, if we want doe, I live on the lake. We can literally throw the boat in and bounce different counties off from a boat same day, and within 3 hours, if everything works out, we've hit 4 different counties in
Hmm.
different, quote unquote units or whatever. And I just feel like that's kind of, you have to be very cautious of, paying attention. So then you get people reading the book, because the amount of people I see ask common knowledge questions. And it's like, dude, you could go to jail over that. Like, that's something you shouldn't be asking on here, on this forum. You should probably read the book. I think, honestly, I do. I agree with that. I think it gets people reading, it makes them check in. Um, and obviously, with the electronic tagging, I was nervous about that when they first launched it. I miss going to the checking station and hanging out and seeing
Hmm.
everything, but it is nice to tag it before you move it, and then you don't have to worry about it. And then obviously you can print tags if you don't have cell
Hmm.
phone service. Um, but yeah, I like the unit thing. I think East Tennessee is way different, like you said, than the West Tennessee. I think that would work. I think they could do a lot of things to really. I think that we are extremely blessed with turkey.
Hmm.
And Tennessee's one of the best states in my opinion, to hunt. Um,
Kentucky's better.
but Kentucky's way better. But it's one of those things. It's like, yeah, if we can buckle down and make it better,
Yeah.
Chuck Swan's not far from me, and there was a ton of out of state guys hunting Chuck Swan this weekend. That's my buddy got drawn for it, and he was saying that he was talking to the game wardens, and they told him about already finding nests with eggs, and that 2 weeks ago they were fired up. And it's just like, man, I'm just eat up with it. But I'm just so worried that I just want everybody to do it right and think
Mm-hmm.
about what they're doing, because, you hear of people going out and doing, killing a ton of birds, or it's like, man, you got to save it for next year. Like, why, if you can't enjoy it and share it, then just don't do it. You know,
Right.
People hopping fences and chasing them and then post about it. And I don't, some of it's comedic or whatever, but it's like, it's
Mm-hmm.
cool to hop a fence until it's your fence that's getting hopped. And then it's a
Right.
different
Right.
story. So
Uh-huh.
it's wild.
Yeah.
What's obviously you just talked about it a little bit, a group of guys coming in hunting the WMA and wiping it clean, sort of say. What's your thoughts on like we've talked, I can't remember who we even talked to about it, but like Florida going to a draw for non-resident, or how Kansas has done it, or a few other states in there. What's your thoughts on something like that? Maybe even for Tennessee.
It's it's hard to be upset about out-of-staters when you are an out-of-stater for 48 other states.
Right.
So, yeah, the resident in me would like to see, $600 out non-resident licenses.
Not me, not me, not me.
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly. But no, but I think you got to go back and just look at data. I mean, and this data is accessible to anybody. You probably have to ask for it, but if you want to, you can ask the agency. Like if I wanted to, I could go to TWRA and I could get the breakdown of the harvest statistics from non-residents versus residents, licenses bought. You can get all of that stuff broken down. And I did see some data on that. I think it was a couple of years ago, and non-residents made up like less than 10%, or maybe even 10% of the harvest for Tennessee. So if we killed, 35,000 birds, they killed maybe 3,500, which, I mean, that's not a lot. So when you look at that data, it's like, oh, well, okay, I can't really, what you going to do? I mean, what's that really going to do? Limiting out of staters, where you going to drop 10% down to 8% or something like that? So in our boat, I think if you try to do things like that, it's not really going to affect anything. Um, and I also think too, I mean, the state probably wants to take care of out of staters because that's a higher profit margin than, especially somebody like me. Like, I've got my lifetime license here in Tennessee. I haven't bought a license since 2009. And so, how many out of staters would they rather see, come into the state and hunt and pay for a license versus me, who hasn't paid TWRA anything in 16 years. so,
Right.
it's yeah, it's a double-edged sword. Yeah, all the residents want to think that they're, being treated more favorable than a non-resident, but also, I mean, the non-residents are bringing a lot of money into the state, and they're not killing that many turkeys. You may think you're seeing a whole lot of out-of-state tags at the gates, but I mean, if he wasn't there, there'd be somebody from Tennessee there.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. And probably more of the out-of-state tags are at those real popular WMAs. I live about 30 minutes from Nashville, and Dylan, which WMAs are around Nashville to get hit hard opening weekend. The one good thing that TWRA did was they made a handful of those WMAs a one bird limit for the first 14 days. And so that's kind of spread everybody out. So you could go to, this WMA on the west side of town. You had to kill one bird there, and you had to go to the other side of town, or you had to go to literally any other WMA to kill that second bird. So that helped spread everybody out. And I think it made a difference. If you look at the harvest data from those WMAs, like, it really thinned out the harvest numbers for that first couple of weekends, and it made the hunting a lot better later in the season too.
Yeah, we don't have. I mean, we've got so much TVA land around us. Like, you'll see, your weekend. It's weekend warrior kind of start strong the first 2 weekends, and then they just die off. But the terrain around here, it's like a lot of people will get out and be like, I'm not walking down that or up that. Like, I'm just, they'll go find somewhere flat, somewhere easy, and then they kind of just wean off of it because it gets hot now. And there's been days just been pouring sweat, and it's like, why am I even doing it? And then he gobbles. Like, oh, yep, that's it. We got a whole nother ridge to go. But yeah, I think I mean, season being back a little bit kind of makes me just. I think it really is just a fear of missing out, But as far as the out of state guys, man, a lot of locals are mad at me probably right now because I've got over 20 guys fixing to come in for this roundup, and a lot of them, I've dropped pins for, but then I think we need to get back to that though, like those big deer camps, those big turkey camps, that old school vibe where you just throw the phone on the truck and just talk for a while because we've started doing that for deer, turkey, and I want to be able to go to Indiana and hunt with Brett. I'm not messing up any public land up there. I'm hunting, with Brett where he hunts, or if we want to hit Arkansas again to chase some ducks. So like I'm probably the most open-minded about it because I know I can't say anything because I'm the one crossing state lines when the season changes.
Yeah, I'll give a lot of credit again to Parker and Walt for SoCo. They've built a large Patreon community, and they host a deer camp, every fall or winter, and they also host a turkey camp. And man, the camp vibe, just like y'all are talking about, like that has made a comeback, I think, because of stuff like that. We used to think that social media, that stuff would go by the wayside, but I think it's brought a lot of people together in that sense and created a lot more bonds, from across the country. Brett's in Indiana, Dylan's here in Tennessee, and our SoCo Patreon. We've got guys out in Oregon, New York State, Michigan, Texas, Florida, all over the Southeast, and somehow or another, a large group of us get together twice a year, and we have that old school camp vibe. We cook, we cut up, and we hunt pretty hard. And so I think that's tremendous. I'm really glad that's made a comeback.
Yeah, we hosted a public land deer camp here in Indiana a couple years ago. Had people come from all over. It was really cool to see everybody from different backgrounds come together. And my buddy from work actually came, kind of a last second thing, and actually ended up taking a good buck. And we were all using this app. I can't even remember what it's called now, but it was basically a group chat on there. And he killed this thing so far back. I didn't even have phone signal. So I went back to the road where I got signal and I dropped the pin. I go, let's see who really is here to have a good time, because we need multiple people to help drag this thing out. Drop the pin, 15 people showed up. And it was just like, oh my God, this is so cool. And it literally took us like 4 hours to get this deer out of there. It was so far back. Over 200-pound deer. I mean, we ended up actually quartering it out, and then 4 or 5 people carrying it and carrying it out. It was awesome how that all came together. But I would love to have the same aspect for turkey, and it's kind of what the roundup has turned up for us there in Tennessee. Like Dylan said, we got 20-some people coming this weekend. Absolutely looking forward to it. I mean, some of those people are hitting public, but a lot of those people, some people from here that are a part of Blue River bow hunting, swapping hunts with guys that Dylan knows and teaming up and that sort of thing. Then everybody has a good day, comes back. We get the smoker going, the grill going. We got wings. I'm bringing a bunch of deer meat. Like, we're going to have a good time. And I don't feel like a lot of people get that camp feel when it comes to turkey hunting.
Yeah, I think, social media has made some people reserved, and I've always said social media is whatever you want to make of it. I mean, you can put into it whatever you want to get out of it, and so on and so forth. So if you want to view it as a way that people exploit, public spots or just whatever, and you just want to hold your cards a little closer to the chest, well, that's, more power to you. But if you want to use it as a way to connect with other people and make yourself a better hunter and learn from people from across the country, then, that's an option too. So it's opened a lot of doors. I think I have no idea how I would have met the majority of people I know now in the hunting realm if it weren't for social media. Well, just like Parker and Walt from, SoCo, there's no way I would have met those guys. Parker in Alabama and Walt in Florida, there's no way. And there's also no telling if I would have even stuck with turkey hunting if it wasn't for like social media and connecting with other hunters and and just discovering other opportunities elsewhere. I went on my first out of state turkey hunt in 2019. That was my bachelor party. I went to Nebraska.
That's bad.
Yeah, it was awesome. And my buddy Jacob, he was the only one that went with me. Oddly enough, you can't find that many guys to take off 10 days and go turkey hunting. But yeah, I mean, after you start watching stuff on YouTube and you just see other opportunities that are out there. I was involved with BHA for a while, and so that really opened my eyes to like public land hunting and seeing what was out there with that. And I can't say bad things about social media. I'd be a hypocrite if I did, because there's no way I would have what I have now if it weren't for it. So I can't badmouth it.
Yeah. I've heard you say that you're a traditional turkey hunter. Tell me exactly what you mean by traditional turkey hunter.
So yeah, just the way I hunt is probably traditional in that I don't use decoys. I don't like carrying the things anymore. I do shoot TSS, but I just don't shoot very far, 40 something yards. I focus a lot on setups and just stuff like that. So I'm not a traditionalist in that my way is the only way. I'm a traditionalist in that my way is the most fun way that I've done it.
Right.
So I think some people, if you hear purist or traditionalist or whatever, it kind of puts a bad vibe in people's mouths. They think you're looking down on a lot of other ways of turkey hunting, and that's just not me. But yeah, I consider myself a traditional turkey hunter, but I guess I'm more open-minded in the way others hunt, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to hear about this Hawaii trip. I've never really talked to anybody that went out there and chased some birds out there. Tell me about this trip, line it up, how it all came together, and just tell us all about it.
Okay. I'll try to keep it short and sweet because it was 6 days of hard hunting, let me tell you. But I got to give credit. I got to give all the credit to my wife. It was her idea. And she's always wanted to go to Hawaii. And I guess the moment that she even caught wind of turkey hunting in Hawaii, she immediately planted that seed in my brain. And she's one of those, when she gets something on her mind, I mean, it's happening. So she took that little idea and she ran with it. And she said, okay, here's the deal. We're going to go to Hawaii. You can turkey hunt all week. I'm going to invite my friend and her husband and their kid, and we'll take grandparents. There was 11 of us total with kids. I got 2 kids, and her friend's got a kid, and so we'll just have this big group, and you and Jason can go turkey hunting all week. You don't have to report back at any certain time. I don't care if I see you only at dark and when we leave, the next Saturday. She said, this is a hunting trip. So I said, 10-4, let's go. And so we did all public. It was the hardest part, I think, of that trip was just getting there. The travel aspect, I think, is the hardest part. It's going to take you a day to get there, a day to get back. You got to travel with guns. I've traveled with a cooler, to bring meat back. So it is complicated, but it doesn't need to be as intimidating as some people think it is. Once you travel a little bit, like Hawaii probably doesn't need to be your first out of state trip.
Right.
But once you've traveled a little bit, I mean, it wasn't really anything new to me. I've flown for a handful of times now to go hunting. So that part wasn't bad, but getting there, once we got there, it's pretty rough country. I never thought that it would be as rough as it was. Like it's hard to describe. Even on the big island, you think of Hawaii as like beaches and palm trees, and that's about it. And, maybe some lava rock or whatever. But there were so many different ecosystems and habitats on that one island. It was amazing to me. There were you would think there'd be rolling plains in one section of the island, but actually those rolling plains, it's a lava rock field of varying sizes. You have lava rocks the size of pool balls. You have lava rocks the size of bowling balls. all the way up to like half the size of a truck hood, and there's a mat of grass covering that. And so my first day there, I stepped off in a hole in between a couple of those rocks and about went ass over boots, down the side of this hill. And so had to mind my footing after that. And then on the other side of the island, like up on the mountain, was like a desert. I went down to Mexico, hunted goulds a few years ago, and up there it reminded me just like Mexico, scrub brush, dead trees. I don't know what them things ate up there. They I guess we did cut open the crops of the two birds that we killed, and there's a lot of grass seed, so like clumps of grass that would grow up around there. And then there was another part of the island that was like a rainforest. It had giant fir trees, and a lot of farmland. It was just so diverse, and there were turkeys all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the island. Now, public land out there, it's just like public land anywhere. I mean, they get pressured. They try to get to private. They could be tight-lipped. So even though they are Rios, and I felt so heartbroken because not a couple of weeks before, when we were doing that March to Spring, we did one episode on, Rios, and we did one for each subspecies. But in the Rio episode, I was talking about how Rios were my favorite. They gobbled all the time. The terrain that they live in ain't that bad, and all these other things I was just bragging about, and I couldn't wait to go to Hawaii and hunt Rios. Well, man, those Rios in Hawaii, they'd gobble on the roost. They'd shut up as soon as their feet hit the ground. They'd get henned up. They wouldn't. I didn't hear a gobble in Hawaii after 8 a.m. and before 6 p.m.
Wow.
It was tough, and yeah. And like I said, the terrain was probably the toughest terrain I've ever hunted in, with all those lava rocks and driving around there. We only got one flat tire. Miraculously, I don't know how we didn't get 18 flat tires in some of those old roads that are around there. But I would recommend that to anybody. If you get a couple trips under your belt, here in the mainland, talk your wife into going to Hawaii. She ain't gonna say no. She's gonna go to Hawaii, but you do need to reiterate that, you're going on a hunting trip. She needs to bring a friend, somebody help with kids. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And y'all just need to have like a separate Hawaii trip. My wife even says today, she goes, "Yeah, we went to Hawaii together, but we didn't go to Hawaii together." Because I think we had like 2 pictures together for the entire week that we were there. And the rest of the time that, I was gone from 3:30 a.m. until 9 o'clock at night, hunting every day. And so it is a logistical feat to get there, especially with a crowd of people that if you take him with you. But I never thought I'd go somewhere that would rival or even beat the views or the scenery out west, like Montana and Wyoming and places like that. Man, you get up, like we were turkey hunting at 9,000 feet elevation in Hawaii. And man, when that sun comes up on a clear morning out there, you can see for probably 20 miles. Like I marked it on Onyx. Like, okay, I remember that knob, that mountain that we were on the other day. Well, how far is that from here? And you just draw the line. Yeah, it's like legit 20 miles away.
Wow.
It's incredible, to turkey hunt on the other side of the clouds, so to speak. It was amazing.
Dylan, we need to mark this about 55 minutes. We need to send this to our wives.
Yeah.
See if we can get a Hawaii trip planned. Because I've only ever hunted Easterns, and me and Dylan finally got a plan for next year. Next year we're going to chase Rios in Texas with our buddy Kurt Box. So I've never even chased any other subspecies than Easterns. I mean, I chase them all from Tennessee to Michigan, but it's only I've only ever hunted Easterns.
Man, those Rios are going to spoil you. If they act like Rios ought to act, you will get spoiled. And I've been to Oklahoma the past couple of years. A buddy of mine has invited me out there, and we're going again this year. And man, when a Rio is acting right, it is like textbook the way turkey hunting was made to be. They gobble a lot. I'm about to say all this now, and I'm probably gonna get whooped in Oklahoma like I did in Hawaii. but when they acting right, I mean, they gobble a lot. They're pretty. They're aggressive. You know, if decoys are your thing, they gonna whoop up on a decoy. And if decoys aren't your thing, they're gonna come in there looking for a fight anyway. You know, they may be all horned up, even though you're talking like a hen, but they still gonna come in there redheaded and ready to do something, either fight or F something else. So, they're fun, man.
We've asked this question quite a bit here on the Spring Thunder, but if you could hunt with any other person, past or present, to turkey hunt with, who you going with?
That's a loaded question, man. To be honest, I'll hunt with anybody that's got access to gobbling birds. Like if one of y'all say, hey, Joy Bell, we got 20 gobbling birds on this property, you just became the number one person I want to hunt with. Yep. So, man, I don't know. You know, there's all the greats out there. You know, there's Cuz and there's Harold Knight, and you can go all the way back to, you know, Gene Nunnery, you know, Tom Kelly, if you want to hunt with those kind of guys. I don't know, man.
I know it's a loaded question for sure.
Yeah, it's hard to pick. It's hard to pick one person. You know, honestly, I'd have to just say my buddy Jacob. You know, I've known him since first grade, and I would just soon hunt with him as anybody. You know, we click that well, and so if I had to pick one person, it'd probably be him. But if somebody else has got gobbling birds, I'll leave him at home.
Oh man, well, buddy, we won't take up any more of your time tonight, man. We really appreciate you coming on and telling your stories from Hawaii and talking some Tennessee birds with us, man.
Man, I can't thank y'all enough. Anytime somebody asks me to come talk turkey, I get tickled to death. I'm humbled that anybody want to hear me talk.
Tell everybody where they can find you at on social media and the podcast and all that stuff, bud.
Yeah, search if you want to listen to the 31 Days of Spring. When you get caught up here on Blue River, switch over to the SoCo channel and get you caught up on the 31 Days of Turkey podcast, the March of Spring at the Southern Collective. You can find that on any podcast platform. You can find SoCo Hunt on any social media platform. They're on everything. You can find me, Reverend 434, on Instagram, or Joey Bell on Facebook. If you ever want to ask any questions, I can tell you all about my failures or anything else. I'm happy to talk with anybody about turkey hunting.
I appreciate it, bud. Dylan, you got anything before we close?
No. The next one will be the episode after the roundup. So we've got a special guest that's going to hop on after he experiences the roundup, and we'll break it down. I'm sure with everything, all the seasons fixing to get going, podcasts are fixing to get good.
Yeah, absolutely. I know this is going to be a week late from hearing it, but good luck to everybody hitting the Tennessee woods this weekend. Hope you get you one for sure. But we'll see you guys here next week for episode 111. We won't tell you who yet, but he's our uncle. But we'll be back next week with you guys. You guys have a good one.